Hey guys, just a quick notice before starting the video. Recently, I have started providing one-on-one chess coaching to all of my subscribers who are interested in improving their game. Watching the videos is a great way to improve your game, but having a teacher by your side can improve your game much faster. That's why I am providing my chess coaching to all of my subscribers on Fiverr for just $15. So if you are interested in learning chess one-on-one with me, then click the link given in the description to visit my Fiverr gig. And now let's get started with the video. Hello everyone, and in today's video we are going to discuss a completely new opening, and this opening is also named as the Gambit Spring Defense. And this opening is actually pretty stable and a pretty good opening to play against 1d4, basically to play against the Queen's Gambit. I know there are many players, there are actually many chess players in the world. There are many players, majority of the players in the lower level, in the club level player, actually struggle to find a good resource against 1d4 because they think like there is no good resource to play against 1d4. So what to play? But in this video, I'm going to solve all your problems by giving you a completely new opening idea, also known as the Gambit Spring Defense, which is actually going to be very helpful for you. So let's jump right into the variation and learn a completely new opening. So make sure to share this video with everyone because I know that there are many players who are struggling to find a resource against the Queen's Gambit. And now finally you are going to get that resource. So we have the the black pieces because we are going to find a resource against g4. So our opponent starts with 1d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, d5, knight c3, and here we are going to play c6. So it's basically a triangular setup like this, and it's actually a pretty good setup. So after c6, now there are two types of player who actually develops like g3, bishop g2, also known as the cardinal opening, which actually Magnus Carlsen plays a lot. And sorry about that. And yeah, and the second types of players are who develop the bishop like this, followed by e3, bishop to d3, and they play like a very free flow chess. Like they develop all the pieces, and there are no problems. So, and whereas black is actually pretty uncomfortable with the bishop on c8. So what to play? So here white simply plays bishop to g5, and after bishop g5, now there are many players who actually place bishop to e7, like stopping the spin, like this. So, but we are going to play knight to d7 in this position, and after knight d7, white is going to reply with e3, and after e3, white idea is very common. Like he wants to develop the bishop followed by castle, and after playing e3, now we are going to play queen a5, and like if your opponent has solved this position, definitely he won't be quite shocked by looking at this move. But if your opponent have never saw this position, then definitely after playing queen a5, he's actually going to get pretty much shocked. Because after queen a5, like if I look at it at the first glance, it looks like now there are actually many threats. Knight e4 is a threat. Bishop to b4 is a threat, like the knight is pinned because, and like perhaps the threat could be like capture the pawn on c4 followed by this horizontal threat like hitting the bishop. So like there are actually very nasty threats from this position. So after queen a5, I'm going to consider 5 common moves that are usually played in this position. First of all, the best move in this position is to play knight to d2. Second, we are going to consider is to capture the knight. Third, we are going to consider to capture the pawn. Fourth, we are going to consider developing the queen to c2, which is also a completely fine move. And fifth, we are going to consider this move a3, stopping this bishop to b4 idea. First, let's start with like all the sidelines. What happens if white captures the knight on f6? After bishop into f6, we are going to capture the bishop back. And here, white is having two ideas. He can either develop the bishop to d3, or he can either go for capturing the pawn on d5. If he captures the pawn on d5, I think after e into d5, the position is actually pretty solid for black. Black is first of all having the bishop pair, which is actually pretty good idea. Second, black can actually simply play bishop g4, bishop d6, short castle, and I think black is already comfortable right from the start. Black have already equalized and even slightly better in this position. So capturing the pawn, we have analyzed. What happens if white tries to play bishop to d3? After playing bishop d3, now we are going to capture the pawn on c4. Bishop into c4, we are going to play bishop to d6. Short castle. And here there could be some two moves. Like white can either go for playing e4 or white can either go for playing queen d3. Whereas the idea is to play double up the like rook d1, rook c1 is the idea. If white tries to play e4, like the idea is to play e5, hit the bishop and the knight, we can simply play e5. And after takes, knight takes, queen takes, it's a completely fine position again. We can simply play bishop e6, followed by rook d8, and I think black have already equalized, the queen is centralized, and there are absolutely no problem in this position for black. So if white does not push this pawn to e4 and he plays queen to d3, now we can play rook to d8. And guess what? The idea in this position is to play c5, because after dc, we can simply play bishop into c5. The rook attacks the queen. And after c5, the idea is actually to play b6 followed by bishop b7, and the bishop is going to be very powerful in this position. So this is the idea. If white plays bishop to d3 in this position. Now going back, we have analyzed bishop into f6. Now we are going to analyze what happens if white tries to capture the pawn on d5 in this position. After c into d5, a into d5 again, because it actually opens up the bishop, like it actually opens up the light square bishop, which is actually a pretty good thing. Bishop to d3 by white, knight e4. And after knight e4, there are actually two common ways to reply. White can either capture the knight, or white can either castle in this position. If white tries to capture the knight, for example, now after d into e4, we actually hit the knight as well as now we hit the bishop as well. Now this is the idea of playing queen a5. After d into e4, the only way for white to not to lose a piece is to play knight to e5. And here we can simply grab the knight, pawn takes, and now not to grab this pawn, guys. Not to grab this pawn because it's a mate. But first play bishop f5, stopping this mate, and now on the next move, like for example castle, you can capture this pawn, and you are completely healthy in this position. If white tries to defend it like queen to d4, I think after bishop c5, you actually hit the queen. On the next move, you can castle. You are having the bishop pair, which will actually give a pretty much good advantage to black in this position. So this is the idea. If okay, so after knight e4, this is what happens if white captures the knight on e4. In this position, if white tries to castle in this position, now we can capture the bishop on g5, knight into g5, and now we are going to simply come back with the queen to d8, because as the king have been castled, so now we are going to play the game on the king side, not the queen side. That is the reason we grab the queen back to d8, hitting this knight. If knight goes to f3, there are absolutely no problem. You can play bishop e7, short castle, followed by knight f6, bishop g4, simply like the basic fundamentals of chess. The position can be a bit tricky if your opponent tries to play f4, protecting the knight, and I think there are many players who actually get afraid after looking at the move from like f4. After f4, we are going to play knight f6, queen c2, g6. As we know that our opponent does not have the dark square bishop, and we can develop the bishop to g7. Now it's actually perfect. Rook e1, bishop g7, knight to f3. There are two moves, like white can either play f5 or white can either go for playing knight f3. If, for example, white goes for playing f5, you can simply castle. And after takes, f takes, and the position is absolutely fine for black. Nothing is happening. If white goes for playing knight f3, in this position, white idea is to play centralize the knight to e5, which actually looks pretty dangerous for black. We are going to castle knight e5, and at the first view, if you are looking at the position, you would be like, white actually looks better. But actually after knight g4, If white captures, there is absolutely no problem. Now black is better because the e3 pawn is extremely weak. But definitely, white is not going to capture this knight. He's going to play h3, and after takes. What is white saying is, like, white is actually having pretty good center, which actually puts psychological pressure to the black side, because it actually looks pretty scary. But after f into e5, you can simply play f6, and the problem is solved. Your opponent have to capture rook f6, queen f6, rook f1, queen e7, and on the next move, you can play bishop e6 followed by rook f8, and you are having the bishop pair. Even this e3 pawn is hanging, so I think it actually is slightly better for black in this position. So this is what happens if white tries to castle in this position. Now this was the idea if white tries to capture the pawn on d5. Now we have covered bishop into f6, we have covered queen to d5. Now it's time to cover queen to c2. Queen c2 is actually a pretty good move, which is actually usually played. After queen c2, we are going to again centralize the knight to e4. And in this position, I'm going to consider three moves. White can either develop the bishop to e2, white can either develop the bishop to d3, or white can either go for playing bishop to f4. First, if white goes for playing bishop d3, trying to hit the knight. Now after knight into g5, d into c4, and guess what? You hit the bishop, you hit the knight, and you are a piece plus. So it's going to be completely winning for black. So after knight e4, if white tries to play bishop to e2, now again you are going to capture the bishop, takes, and after d into c4, you hit the knight. So white actually have to go back with the knight, and after b5, you are a pawn up, followed by, you can continue the game by playing bishop b4, and your black is actually already slightly beaten, because you are a pawn. That is the reason the best move is to play bishop f4, going back with the bishop, and now you are going to play bishop b4. And now it's a triple attack on the knight on c3. So the best move is to play a3, telling black that white is actually hitting the bishop, but actually white cannot capture the bishop because the rook is hanging. So after a3, you can simply capture this knight on c3 with the knight. And actually there is only one move which actually keeps the position equal, or else all the moves is completely winning for black. First of all, you cannot capture this knight because after takes, you lose the rook. You cannot capture the bishop because you lose the rook again. So the only move is to play queen b3, which is extremely hard to find. And now black can even continue with knight e2 check. If king into e2, you can simply come back with the bishop. The white have lost his castling right, so it's already better for black. That is the reason queen into b4 is the best. And after queen trade, knight captures the bishop, takes, checks, knight b6. And guess what? The position is slightly better for black. The reason is quite simple. Double b pawns, isolated d pawn, double f pawns, whereas black pawn structure is extremely beautiful against compared to the white structure, which actually gives black a pretty decent advantage. So this is what happens if white tries to play queen to c2 in this position. Now let's talk about a3. After a3, white idea is to actually block the bishop to b4. And now we are going to again play knight to e4. And in this position, white is again having two moves, rook c1 and bishop f4. If bishop f4, we can capture the knight. And again, the best move and the only move is to play queen d2. Already very hard to find. If pawn takes, queen takes pawn, you cannot bring the queen because the rook is hanging. So you have to bring the knight, and after bishop into pawn, you are 2 pawn down, your opponent is 2 pawn down, and now you are actually completely winning the game. So queen to d2 is the best, and now you can play bishop e7, queen into bishop, queen takes, knight f6, and the position is already fine. Black can continue by castle, centralizing the knight to e4. Perhaps b6, bishop b7 can be an idea, and black is absolutely fine in this position. So this is what happens if white tries to play bishop f4. Now let's see what happens after white tries to play rook c1. Knight into g5, knight into d into c4, and guess what? The knight is again attacked. The knight have to move. Like, for example, if white tries to prevent the knight, first hit the knight and then play b5. And you are again a pawn up, having a good position, and it's winning for black. So yeah, so we have covered a3, we have covered bishop into knight, we have covered pawn into pawn, we have covered queen c2, and now the only move remaining to cover in this position is what happens if white tries to go back with the knight to d2, which is actually the best move. After knight d2, we are going to play bishop to f4, bishop to b4, putting pressure like this. And guys, a very great alert in this position. If your opponent tries to play something like queen b3, pawn takes. Queen is hanging, the bishop is hanging. It's already over for white. You have to capture the pawn because the queen is hanging, so it doesn't matter how white captures the pawn. Black is going to play bishop into c3. You can even pre-move this move. Queen into, and you capture the bishop, and black is a piece up. It's winning. Actually, this actually happened in my game. I was the white, and I played queen b3, and I lost. So yeah, queen c2 is a fine move, and after queen c2, you can simply castle. Bishop e2, you can capture the pawn on c4. Bishop have to capture the knight because the bishop is hanging. So first takes, and now white captures the pawn. Hitting the queen, queen have to move back, short castle, and here you can continue by playing b6. Your idea is to play bishop b7. So rook c1, bishop b7, knight to e5 centralizing the knight, and it actually looks white is better. But rook c8, queen a4, bishop captures the knight, rook takes, putting more pressure on the pawn on c6. Now you can play c5. First of all, white cannot capture the pawn because the knight is hanging. Second, white cannot capture the pawn on a7 because the queen is trapped. That is the reason rook c1, and after queen b8, it's absolutely fine position for black because you again cannot capture because the knight is hanging, and even the pawn is protected by the queen. So after knight f3, you can simply capture it, and after like this. After a5, the position is completely fine. On the next move, you can play rook c8, and the position is absolutely fine. So guys, this first of all, the Cambridge spring opening starts whenever you land this position. And actually, this position is actually pretty common in every game. Like if you put this position on the mega database, you would see Magnus Carlsen playing with the black pieces. You would even see Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, playing with the white pieces also. So this position is actually pretty common. And playing the Cambridge spring, like playing like this structure with the black pieces, it actually played in the high level as well. So definitely this opening is something special. And guys, a very gentle reminder, I already know that everybody watching the video have already know that Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, is not going to defend his title again. And now candidate's winner, Ian Nepomniachtchi, is going to fight against the second seed of the tournament, which is Ding Liren. And now it's going to be Ian Nepomniachtchi versus Ding Liren, and they're going to fight for the world championship title. So definitely a very sad news for all the fans of the Magnus Carlsen. But yeah, we have to accept it and move on. So, but still, definitely Magnus Carlsen, we know that his games are definitely going to be very interesting, and in our heart, he's going to be the world champion. So after Queen a5, this is the Cambridge spring, and it's pretty decent opening. You can go and check it out. And a small advice, just do a bit detail on this knight to d2 variation, because there are some lines where the game actually becomes very complicated after knight to d2. But you just check out once the different variations in the knight to d2 variation. Perhaps in the future, I'm going to come up with another variations in the knight to d2 variations. So yeah. So guys, if you like this lesson of this Cambridge spring opening, then make sure to like the video, share this video with everyone, because I know that this video is going to be actually very helpful for every chess player who suffers, who do not know what to play against this Queen's Gambit idea with the black pieces. So yeah, if you are guys new to our channel, then make sure to like the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'm going to come up with these interesting videos like this. And guys, actually I'm going to play a chess-based India Originals tournament, so I'm going to leave tomorrow. And yeah, chess-based India tournament, I'm absolutely sure that every chess player watching Oneshot Chess, like our channel, already know what is chess-based India. It's a channel very, very popular, and they are going to organize a chess tournament in Mumbai, which like a death match against with Gujarati against Anish Giri. So I'm going to go there, and actually I'm going to make a vlog. So I'm going to post a vlog. So just tell me. So actually it's going to be very fun. So I'm going to see you soon. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching Oneshot Chess.